Hi there, Jason here from English Raven, and here's our next Open English material. Remember that this is my open source material. Um, what you're looking at is what I sort of just recommend as a starting point. I've produced quite a few of these now, so remember that it's all about cutting, adding, adjusting, adapting, using in the way that suits you. But for this particular material, which I've labeled Think Deeply, I'm quite happy with this image and how it works with the color scheme actually. For a while, it took me a while to work out an appropriate title for this one. I was thinking about things like plain sailing, um, open wide, you know, deep, and I just came up with think deeply because I think you can interpret the sky as being deep as well as the water, and it's kind of interesting when you show images like this to students what they focus on. Some look at a picture like that and they feel very free and very open, whereas others feel quite fearful. Some of them look up and see the freedom of the sky. Other people look down and look at this dark water and feel kind of scared of something too deep for them. And that's what this picture's there for. It's designed to get them thinking a bit, to think deeply, I guess. Um, with some of the previous materials, some of it's been more light-hearted. There's been different emphasis in different materials and different pictures. And the way I normally like to use a picture like this is, well, to keep it nice and open, and not assume too much about how students will react. But I'd like them to think a little bit about this one and to use and learn to use their English to express themselves a little bit. So what you're looking at on the first page there for A, just with these 12 boxes here, basically one way I might use this is to say, right, everybody, here's what think deeply means, just in case you didn't know, and here's all the other ways we can use the word deep. And we might elicit some other words in reaction to the picture. We might do a bit of board work with that and put some words up that the students can copy down here. But then I would say, look at the picture and just write one sentence about how you feel when you look at that. And get each student to go to number 1 and write that sentence. And they can express themselves however they like, but it should be something in relation to that picture. Now look, you might get some students that go, I feel like riding in a boat or going swimming, or I'm scared of the water, or whatever. And then you might get students who get a little bit more philosophical about it. They might say, I feel fresh and open and free. Others might say, oh, I feel like I'm sinking, I might drown. You might get all sorts of responses, but the idea is that each student will write down in number 1 their reaction to this picture, and then we'll share those expressions as a class. And we might write them down on the whiteboard, and the other students will write down here the sentences that they hear other students producing in response to this picture. And it's a great way to share that expression that lots of different people might have to that kind of picture. And we can collect all that and put it and get them to write them down, and then we can explore some of the language in there. And the good thing about having the students read out loud their sentences is that as we're writing them up on the whiteboard, we can correct them and we can show how they could be done a little bit better, or a little bit more accurately, or a little bit more with a bit more expression. And then students are getting model examples of how the language can be used as they write it down, and the student concerned can make a quick correction if that's, it depends on your classroom culture and your relationship with the students. But that way they'll have sort of 12 interesting sentences here with some language notes next to it, hopefully, that we generate through the whiteboard. And that in itself is a kind of interesting activity, just to get all the different reactions and to explore the language that is used to express those reactions. Now, looking over the second page, This might look familiar. If you've been following along through these Open English tutorials, you've probably seen this format before. In B, what I would probably look to do is, in review of what was produced here, to challenge the students to look back over that side of the sheet, and in here put in vocabulary words in certain parts of speech, nouns, verbs, adjectives, adverbs, or as I said in the tutorial where I first introduced this, we might go nouns, nouns, verbs, adjectives, or we might just do adjectives, adjectives, adjectives. It depends on what's been generated in the class with the students and what level they're at, how much they can take of that. Or we could just make it a lot simpler. We could just say, go through all these sentences and just write down all the words that you think are important, or words that you think would be useful to you. And that way we can get a heap of words here, and we can share them as a class. We can explore them a little bit. We can again take some notes if we need to and explore that. So we've gone from this general idea of just general expressing yourself to pulling out some of the vocabulary. And then in C, now there's a couple of different ways I might use C. I might use C the way I've explained it before, and that is to look over these words that we pulled out and make 4 new sentences based on them, about you or about something that's true about you. And then with a partner, exchange your sentences, basically read them out loud to each other and write them down and ask questions to each other. So that is one way I might use it. Another thing I might do is actually say, well, based on what we've done so far, make 4 questions to ask a partner. And these might be things like, what makes you feel free? What scares you? Do you like swimming? There could be anything that we've generated so far out of that response to this picture, and then they can ask the questions to a partner and write down the answers. So that's another variation on how we might go about that. It's all about sort of tweaking and twisting what you're doing to get different outcomes. I generally like to have a bit of a rhythm to my lessons where we might do something a little bit more open and a little bit more playful. Then we might do something a little bit more reflective. Start with just generally expressing yourself, then get back to the smaller parts of the language and explore them, and then put them back into usage again. So there's various ways. Now remember, as I said, you could always go back to the other templates and pull out those activities and paste them in here, because everything that I make here is open source. Just bear in mind that with these very open general pictures, they could be a little bit hard, for example, to write a story about. It could be a bit hard to write a story about that, unless they're of sufficient level and age and interest, interest in expressing themselves. By the same token, if you ask them to make a dialogue about that picture, it might be a bit hard. So you've sort of got to make sure you orient your activities around your input in terms of how appropriate and how effective they'll be. I've generally found that with these very open pictures, just learning to express yourself in a limited way, with a limited amount, is usually the best way. Because it might be hard for them to write more than a couple of lines about this, because it's pretty complex. But then it's great to share those expressions share the whole group's responses to this kind of thing. So it's more about the expressing yourself about a general topic. Actually, it's not a topic. It's more of a concept, I guess. It's more of an idea, very general idea. So something to consider using, and remember, you could tweak it in whatever way you like, but that's my Think Deeply resource from Open English. Hope it gives you some ideas, and remember to butcher it however you like, and redo it and reconstruct it or rename it. It is open source, so you can change this in whatever way you like to generate the right material for your class. Good luck with it. This is Jason from English Raven.